specializing in data communications, I've noticed that I have become obsessed with data and numbers because I believe that without evidence, facts, numbers, statistics, data, communication might not be as effective as with using the numbers and evidence. So today I want to show you a few ways how you can color your communication with data and how to make it more effective. So, do you know this guy? Okay, who is he? Joseph Stalin, yes, and we share the country of origin. That's not something that I'm proud of, quite on the contrary. But coming from this small country, sometimes people are proud of things that otherwise they would not be, I hope. 2012 survey have shown that Georgians, 45% of Georgian population has positive feelings towards Stalin. Well, yeah. Apart from being a great leader of Soviet Union, this guy is famous for being an author of this quote: "The death of one man is a tragedy, but the death of millions is a statistic." I take his words as a challenge, and with my team of very talented designers, developers, and researchers, I try to turn boring numbers into human stories. And the challenge we face every day is, let's say, how to turn the death of millions into tragedy, but stronger with million times. There are a few ways to do so. First way is to make this clicker work. Yeah. Interpret the numbers. We as communication specialists are the translators of boring numbers into human stories. So, how would we do so? It's still not quite well researched how many people Stalin has victimized. The numbers vary from 20 million to 60. And while taking this challenge with my team, we kept modest and we took the smallest estimations by historians. So, 6 million people were killed during artificial famine, the historians say. How many is 6 million, really? It's just statistic. But we try to turn it into something that Georgians would relate to. And you know, we love weddings. And we love big weddings. And usually our wedding parties are quite full of food. Layers of food on the table, hours of drinking and eating. I don't know if you have been to Georgia, but if you have not, you should come and you will see what I mean. It's just, it's funny. I don't know, like it's not normal what we do at weddings and parties. So 6 million people equals to 15,000 Georgian weddings of 400 people. Yes, we do wedding parties with 400 people. So that was the way how we tried to translate this number for the people who are fond of Georgian weddings. What about the next number? 1 million people executed during the Great Terror. How many is that? We are not only proud of Stalin, fortunately, we are also proud of our great history from time to time. And in the 12th century, the greatest battle happened in Georgia when our greatest king defeated the Turk Seljuk Empire. And in that battle, number of Georgian soldiers was 5 times less than the enemy's army. So everyone knows about that war, and everyone is proud of that great, miraculous victory. So we say that the number of people executed during the Great Terror is 3 times more than the army that Georgian forces faced in the Battle of Vidgori. And that's something that everyone would know what we are talking about, because we know in that battle Georgians were facing a lot of people. And just the number of people who were executed during the Great Terror is 3 times more than our enemy in the 12th century. Up to 800,000 sentenced to death. Okay, for those people who are not fond of weddings, or maybe who are not that proud of our wonderful victories over the history, How can we translate this number into something that they will understand? All Georgian MPs for 13 centuries. Can you imagine? Just this single number equals to the number of members of parliaments that Georgia would have for 1300 years. And I hope that the politicians would really relate themselves to this interpretation. What about young generation? They might not care about history, they do not go to weddings, probably, and they also do not care about MPs and politics. But they know how many people there are on Facebook. So, almost 3 million people sent to camps and prisons by Stalin equals 2 times all Georgians on Facebook. And I have to admit, this number is from 2013, and by the time not that many people were on Facebook. So I guess now the number would be a little bit less, maybe like 1.5, but still, it's a lot. It's all the Georgians we know, because all of them are on Facebook. With interpreting these otherwise boring numbers, we try to personalize these stories. But there is also other way. This is our interactive visualization project. Can you buy a flat? It's about the affordability of property in Georgia. And the idea of the project is that when you enter the website, you choose how big apartment you would like to own in the first part of the visual. In the second column, you enter the value of how much you can save every month to buy this property. And the results, at least for me, was quite depressing. It would take me almost 34 years to buy quite modest apartment. I think it was 57 square meters or something like that. And I don't know if you can see, but there are very nice comments. One Georgian guy is saying, damn, yeah, that was very sad reality for him, I guess. But he had his own results, so maybe for him it was even longer than 34 years. And then we see Megan from Atlanta, Georgia, commenting, wow, very cool tool, what a reality check. I hope he doesn't think that it's happening in Georgia, USA, but still, yeah, it's a very, very cool tool and a reality check. So with personalizing the data and numbers, we try to convey our message to bigger audiences, to the people who otherwise would just look at the combination of digits as numbers, as statistics, as boring numeric value. When we are communicating with our audiences, we need to be direct, like we were in this case. You remember 45% of Georgians had positive feelings for Stalin, and we told them directly that their hero is a mass murderer. And after this headline, we had 10 data points showing that what we are telling them is supported by the evidence, by the facts, by the numbers. It's very important that we make this complex information simple, with choosing our message to be clear, direct, and simple. Like this one. It was about the most common diseases in Georgia. And we just named it quite simply, How Do Georgians Die? Showing that 40% of deaths in Georgia is caused by heart diseases. And then showing these very sad statistics with nice illustrations. The main risk factor in our country for heart diseases is high blood pressure. And the main reason for this disease being so common is that people just simply do not go to the doctor. They don't get treatment. So we showed them the numbers saying that 80% of #1 cause of death in Georgia could be prevented. How? Quite simple, but not simple for Georgians, because having a healthy diet in Georgia, where we have khachapuri, khinkali, and these layers of food on parties, it's not that easy. Moderate alcohol use? What's that? We come from the wine country like Moldova, so, okay, I will not go into details. And it's quite challenging to moderately consume alcohol when you have such a good wine, and not only wine. No smoking. In Georgia, it's still not prohibited to smoke inside the public area. So we have restaurants and cafes and bars where you go and you choke even if you do not smoke. You are a passive smoker. And also, sport is not that popular in the country yet. So we just showed quite simply that the #1 cause of death is heart diseases. People do not get the treatment, but 80% of these deaths could be preventable by following these simple rules. When you are in communications and you have some message that you want to communicate, and usually you use numbers to make it stronger, it's very tempting to try and interpret these numbers as you would like them to be. I've been facing this challenge and temptation very often when I have these gut feelings, I have the intuition that what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to communicate to the audience is true, but I cannot find that single number or that single statistic that would help me prove what I want to say. So it's very important in that case to overcome your temptation and just follow the numbers and the research that you can find, something that is reliable and truthful. Because otherwise, if you lose the trust of the audience, then your communication campaign will get the opposite result. People will not believe in you. So every single material, when you try to communicate something through data, you need to show the source. If it's quite complicated methodology, like in the case of can you buy a flat interactive project, you need to be very clear about the methodology that you created this tool. Or when it's just a simple infographic, you say what was the data source. You also upload the numbers and data, so someone who is skeptical about your findings, your messages, they can download, check, and be convinced that what you communicated to them was true. Every infographic that was created by my team has this section of sources, naming every single source that we have used for coming up with those messages and coming up with those humanized data points. One more important tip for coloring your communications with data is to innovate. Try new forms. Yesterday we heard from Viorel Pahomi from the screen, surprisingly, that journalism is changing and we need to deal with that. Then we had George saying that social media platforms can be hacked and we need to use them in order to reach bigger audiences. It's true in our case as well when it comes to data communication. And it's even more important because we are not talking about entertainment content. We are talking about complex information. Usually people who are quite lazy to understand these numbers, they try to avoid this complex information. So we need to come up with the new ways of reaching them and grabbing their attention. Like this one. It's called Gifographic. I think we started creating this type of content around a year and a half ago when we noticed that the people we were trying to reach spent more time scrolling their Facebook feeds than reading the news articles or visiting websites. So we just created the visual content which showed the important data points and which would start playing automatically when they would be scrolling down the Facebook feed. I don't know where our audiences will be tomorrow or the day after tomorrow or after 1 year, but it's our job to always innovate, to experiment as much as we can. And actually, if we are cool enough and if we are smart enough, we will be at the platform before the user goes there. So by the time our user, our audience reaches that particular platform, we will already be there communicating with our messages. So I cannot tell you what is this innovation right now because I still have to experiment myself, but I can tell you where you can find what me and my team will come up with in a nearest few months. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nino. Thank you. If you have any questions for Nino, please raise your hand and we'll pass the mic.
Questions?
Hi, Nina. My name is Yule. Nice presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I was wondering if you do all that in Georgian.
We do it in 2 languages, Georgian and English. We had some short-term project in Armenia as well, and our content was created in Armenian too. From time to time, when we have partners, we also create content in Russian. So we are like multilingual, but everything we do usually is Georgian and English.
And is that difficult to do that in Georgian in another language? Because I know it's changing. The fonts are changing, the layout is changing. Is that hard?
Well, the hardest part for us is to do the research, come up with a concept, create visual parts. So just translating that content in another language is a very, the efforts that we have put into creating that content in one language is so big that it just takes like an additional few hours or a day to translate it. But the impact is quite big because what we do in Georgia, I believe, has a global impact, and we want to reach as big audiences like yourself as possible. So we think it's very important to create content in 2 languages.
Thank you, Nino. Any other questions? Yeah, we have one more question.
Hi, my name is Victoria. I was wondering, how do you get the data? How do you do the researches? I thought those are your clients, but in discussion you told you make the researches pro bono. How is the process?
We are the communications agency, so we do not do research ourselves. With research, I meant that we try to get the numbers and statistics that other offices hold. For example, we do most of our visuals based on some surveys, polls done by other research companies, or we request data from public institutions. There have been the cases when we have used some innovative ways of data collection. For example, the interactive project about whether you can buy a flat or not, we scraped the website of advertisements about how much the flats cost, and that's how we got the data. But it varies from project to project.
Thank you, Victoria. One more question.
Hello, Nino. Thank
I
you for your
cannot hear,
presentation.
sorry.
My name is Julian, and I would like to ask you, what is the most effective type of visualization? Is it interactive visualization that you showed with the flats, or gifographic, or something else? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It really depends on your message and your audience. Because if you're trying to reach young people, most probably you will find them in social media. So gifographic would be, or video would be something that would be most effective for them. If your audience or your story that you want to communicate is more complex and it cannot be fit into a single few second long gifographics, then it might be complex data portal or interactive visualization. So it really depends on your message, your audience, and where they are, where these people are that you want to reach.
Thank you. Thank you, Nino.
Thank you.